Welcome, everybody, to another Western Canadian Reason webinar series. A few messages before we start. So, as you all know, our webinars are free to attend, but we are a volunteer-run group and we rely on community support. So, please, if you can donate any amount, just scan the QR code or go to our website, rockymountainatheist.ca. And as I said, any amount helps us to keep us going. The views, quick disclaimer, the views and opinions expressed by speakers and audience members during this event are their own and do not reflect the official policies, positions, or views of the Rocky Mountain Atheists. We are an inclusive community of atheists, humanists, skeptics, and secular freethinkers, and of course, everyone is welcome. We have a few guidelines for you all. Respect all participants and viewpoints. Keep comments and questions on topic. Discussion is encouraged. Civility is required, please. We've never had any disruptions. Let's keep it that way. After the presentation, we'll have a Q&A. So please use the hand raising icon under reactions to ask a question. Wait until you're called to unmute yourself before speaking, and keep questions concise and relevant to the topic. Our speaker tonight is Alan Koslow. I hope I got it right. He's a retired vascular surgeon, humanitarian responder, medical researcher, public policy advocate, and interviewer about science, governance, and public policy. He'll be presenting to us a new presentation. It's called Humanism in Science Fiction, Ethics Without Divine Authority. And I'll stop sharing so that Alan can take control.
Uh, just to fill you in from more than what Helio had covered, I recently moved from Des Moines, Iowa to Albany, New York. After my wife and I retired, we wanted to move close to family as we had no family in Iowa, and we have family on the East Coast. And I'm absolutely loving Albany, New York. So there's that. The things I'm doing is I'm spending much more time going to science fiction conventions, and the biggest convention I go to is Dragon Con in Atlanta each year on Labor Day. And I'm also going to Chautauqua Institute during the summer. Which is an absolutely amazing place, and I recommend it very strongly. It's a summer camp for intellectually seeking adults. They have a 9-week program there. And I'm also very involved with politics and social action events. Well, anyway, and there's something else. Some of the people who are on tonight are from a online group that I'm involved with out of Edmonton, which we meet on Saturday, Monday, and Thursday. And Monday and Thursday, we Zoom science fiction and fantasy TV shows, and on Saturday night we do mystery shows. So if you want to find out more about that, you can ask me after this. Well, and that's how Helio found me. He came on one time and we got to talking about this. And this is how this talk came about. And I've been lecturing for years and on panels for years at science fiction conventions on the history of science fiction. And so Helio asked if I would be willing to do a talk for his group. And I suggested doing a talk on humanism and science fiction. And I put together this talk for the group. So now to begin the talk, the when I started to put this together, I realized that science fiction is really very drastically different than fantasy. Science fiction is really very drastically different than fantasy. And where science fiction is a humanist um, genre, which I'm going to talk about and demonstrate for you. Fantasy is a theistic genre overall, and I'm not going to be getting into it more than just uh, mentioning that now. And so there's in science fiction, there really uh, looks at developing ethics without a divine authority. And so I'm going to be discussing it in terms of the whole genre from our early proto science fiction all the way through to the modern science fiction. So, what happens to morality when God is absent or irrelevant and tradition no longer applies, and technology changes the human condition? And so what remains is distinctly human. And we want to walk through what science fiction repeatedly removes the moral scaffolding that society generally has, that religion built, and see what is left. And therefore, uh, what is left is that humans need to build that moral scaffolding, and that is why science fiction has been and has become a humanistic literature because when you look at all the books that I'm going to cover, and really when you look at basically all the books that are pretty much in the science fiction realm, you never really come across any God or supernatural entity. It's just really us poor humans who have to come up with that framework. So let's first talk about what's the definition of humanism. Humanism, as used in this talk, is moral reasoning without divine authority, responsibility from choice and consequences. Meaning is created, not revealed. In science fiction, there's no divine referee. There's no guaranteed moral order. Humans are fully responsible for the structure of how society is in almost all science fiction literature that there has been written, and I would say will probably almost be written going forward. Uh, not This is not an argument against religion. This is examining morality when religion isn't doing the work. And that basically is what we find in science fiction. And that is totally different from fantasy, where in fantasy, religion continues to do the work, or some entity is there, usually doing the work. Uh, where in science fiction, there is no supernatural entity doing the work. Uh, it is left up to the humans to do the work, to figure out what is the moral framework that is going to be happening with this. The Renaissance is really an interesting time, and is it really, when you look at it, is really the moral DNA of science fiction. Because of the Renaissance, there's a authority shift from God to human reasoning. Knowledge is now revelation rather than it goes from revelation to observation, and meaning goes from tradition to inquiry. So these three shifts is what makes it that we from an intellectual point of view, we shift away from God and religions to human and humanism. And this is the whole basis for science fiction literature becoming a humanistic literature. And so that's why I say that the Renaissance becomes the moral DNA of science fiction. And the key claim of my talk is that science fiction grows out of humanism, not out of technology. Because everybody, if you were to ask most people, they would say that science fiction is a result of technology. And I really feel that after you hear this whole talk, you're going to realize that it's the humanism that drove science fiction, and technology is just the framework that science fiction was draped over, and not really the reason why we have science fiction, but it's the humanism is the reason why we have science fiction. And because we had science fiction before we had the machines. And I'm going to show you with the two very major pieces of work, and even with the first two major science fiction writers, and you'll see this very clearly. So the first work, by the way, there's always, when you say, what is the first science fiction work? There is always a great argument as to what is the first science fiction work. People say that it's, H.G. Wells, or it's Verne, or it's Frankenstein, or it's Gulliver's Travel. Um, uh, I actually, if you ask me, I actually refer to a Greek book that was written in 240 of the Common Era, called True Stories, but that's for another talk that I have. But um, proto science fiction was really a moral experiment that was written in the 18th century, that they used imagined worlds to create ethical distance. Human was judged by actions and consequences. God was completely silenced in these works. There were many, many works written in the 18th century. I actually do have a talk on the history of science fiction, and I talk about over a dozen major works written in the 18th century. And in all these works, God is silenced, irrelevant, and or completely absent. And what these stories do is they test human behavior under altered conditions. And these are done as parables to show problems with the society. And they're done in a kind of altered society, so that they're not accused of um, of attacking their own societies, but they do it in such a way that these are actual science fiction type stories. And the first one of these that everybody knows is Gulliver's Travel in 1726. And in Gulliver's Travel, human reason is on trial. That is actually what Swift was trying to do. He In each of the realms that Gulliver travels to, he's trying to test a moral claim. And in the first one, I always have trouble pronouncing these. The Humanism, he's testing rationality versus custom. In the Lilliput, it's ethics versus tradition. And in the Broadenags, it's behavior versus belief. And what he's doing in this is he's humans are judged by compassion by comparison, not by creed. And the key point he's making is that moral failure is human, not theological. And he does this in a way that he shows that it's um, you don't need God or theology. You just need humans to define a moral system. Now, the one that really hits home when you look at this humanism is Shelley's work. And you got to remember that Shelley had read, and I was thinking about actually putting in the slide that I have on the history of science fiction and listing all of the dozen plus uh, science fiction books written in the 18th century, just so you get an idea of the many books written, science fiction books written in the 18th century, and not a single one in any of them mentions God at all or mentions any theology at all. And Shelley, I'm sure she was very well written, had read every single one of them, even though many of them were written in German or French. And so she, uh, having read those, she wrote Frankenstein. And she removes completely from the work any divine creation. She removes original sin. And what she replaces it with is human creation, human responsibility. And the key point that she makes is that cruelty and neglect is what creates the monstrosity. So it's not the monster doesn't create the monstrosity. The way that people act creates the monstrosity. Society produces the monstrosity. And society evil uh, of the society and not anything metaphysical. There is nothing metaphysical at all in Frankenstein. And it's a completely humanistic work and has to be read completely as a completely humanistic work. One thing I just want to mention about it is if you do reread Frankenstein, the 1818 version of it was cut by 20%, and the 1831, I think it's 31 or 32 version of it, that 20% was put back. So if you go back and reread it, make sure you read the later version, which is the complete version. So just as an aside. Okay, now Jules Verne. Jules Verne was an optimistic humanist, and I'll get to that in a moment. But Jules Verne uh, more felt strongly that moral judgment did not need divine authority. That was his basic that was his basic in all his writing. He felt that there was no need for any divine authority in order to make moral judgments. And you can see this throughout his writings from when he was even writing travel guides in the 1850s. His ethics was grounded completely in human behavior uh, and responsibility precedes machines. Uh, um, and all of this came before ethics comes before its technology. He and as I said, this is where the first science fiction novel debate also can be brought up because he started writing science fiction before a lot of the technology really was brought up. He wrote so some of his later stuff had a lot of the technology, but his early stuff was more about how humans dealt with the world, the broader world, because he started writing as a travel writer. His first stuff was he wrote travel stories, and they expanded into travel stories that were science fiction-y. And then, Journey to the Center of the Earth and stuff like that, that didn't really need weird technology or anything. Someone wants to be admitted. Let me just click that. Another one of my friends, and he so it was as he progressed in his writing that he added more and more machines, but his works were really about humans, how humans responded to the earth, the world, unusual situations. And this is important to remember that it was still considered science fiction, even though it was more humanist, because it was humans making ethical decisions about how they are interacting with the world and with other humans and in situations about this. So science fiction is humanists first, and then technology second. And I think this is a very unique way of looking at science fiction that I really haven't seen any scholarship on this before. And it's a very distinct way. Verne was a optimistic humanist. He thought knowledge was as a moral good, curiosity as a virtue. He he definitely thought there can be awe without God. And the best example of this is 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. By the way, when I was a kid, I always thought 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea was how deep it was. That's how far they traveled, not how deep it was. Um, and his biggest assumption was that reason would lead to improvement. The more you reasoned, it would always lead to improvement. This was where H.G. Wells deviated from Verne. This is an important point, and it's kind of like there's a sine wave in how science fiction deals with this whole question of does reason lead to improvement? Is there a moral arc to the future? Does the future always go towards towards the good? And I think we're right now living in a part of history that proves that the moral arc doesn't always go towards good. So H.G. Wells then comes around after Verne. I'm looking at my next slide by mistake. So the limits of Verne's optimism was he rarely questions power, exploitation, systemic moral failure, the results. He did not see the negative aspects of what happened with um, colonization, and with the Industrial Revolution. He was still seeing them as being good things. He still thought that the Industrial Revolution was benign and good, and that colonization of the third world was benign and good. So he uh, it it colored his writings greatly. Then H.G. Wells comes along, and he basically felt that humanism didn't guarantee outcome. He was a strong believer that science explained the world, and also that evolution has no moral direction. Just because you had survival of the fittest and that you tended to go in a positive direction most of the time, but that did not mean that positive direction was a moral direction. And one of his greatest works, I'll be talking about, I have two slides on it. We'll talk about that in a second. Progress is contingent, not guaranteed. And he has a lot of humanist claims in his works, and responsibility increases when meaning is not promised. Knowledge does not mean goodness, and intelligence does not mean ethics. But he also felt that he very strongly, he was atheistic and there was no God. And he also felt that there was no destiny. Nothing was preordained. So probably besides War of the Worlds, his greatest known book was The Time Machine. And the Time Machine really was a future without providence. And what Wells did was he removed a divine plan, but he also removed a moral arc of history. And uh, and he basically said that history doesn't bend towards justice, and the future reflects the accumulated social choices that society or people make, and the future doesn't save us, it judges us. Um, the Eloi, they ended up having comfort without responsibility. The Morlocks had exploitation without empathy. This is a cautionary tale of the failure of humanism. By the way, several of the books that I'll be talking about are cautionary tales of the failure of humanism. So while humanism, humanism is not guaranteed to end up in a good place. But we've also seen through history that religion definitely doesn't end up in a good place. Okay, we skip ahead to Ray Bradbury, who gives us humanism without reassurance. Technology reveals character, but there's a moral failure is emotional, not technological. But he felt strongly that responsibility remains personal. And progress does not civilize by itself. So he accepts H.G. Wells's warning but he rejects the Golden Age really had a confidence that technology will amplify what humans already are, that the technology will, just by having a technology, it'll allow humans to be better humans. And he didn't feel that that was true, that he felt that humans will still have the violent streak. They'll still have the racism, and and so the Martians exposed this. That was the whole idea about the Martian Chronicles. By the way, sorry I cut off the word Chronicles on the picture. Um, uh, and there's not a redemptive arc in his work. Uh, so uh, so it's really just uh, he didn't feel that technology uh, helped in the help the humans to get over these problems at all. Now, there's two Campbells that I'm going to talk about. There's John Campbell, who is the uh, editor of Analog, and a little bit later I'll be talking about Joseph Campbell. But right now, John Campbell was the editor of Analog, and he basically was the person who brought technology into science fiction. He started editing Analog in the um, I think it was in the 50s, and edited it or the late 40s, and edited it for about 25 years. And he bought almost every major science fiction writer of the Golden Age. He bought, well, actually, he was in the 40s, and he bought the first stories of almost every major science fiction writer you can think of from the golden era. And he every story that was submitted to Analog, he wrote a 2 or 3 page rejection letter or acceptance letter for them. And but he really wanted technology stories in Analog, and he's the reason why we have so many technology stories from them. But he really wanted he wanted the stories to be solvable by humans. He wanted the humans to be the moral agents that solve the story. Uh, and he wanted there to be no God or cosmic moral order at all. And he wanted it to be a human driven stories, with the humans making the moral framework and the moral order. This was typical of the it's rockets, robots, engineering dominant era. Human made, human enforced, but ethics assumed to arise from intelligence and responsibility. And he was basically one man um, who was responsible for that for a 25, 30-year period that he ran Analog magazine. Isaac Asimov, he was one of the main people who came out of Campbell's stable, and his first story was in Analog, and it was actually a second story he wrote, and it's still considered the best science fiction short story ever written. And it's called Nightfall. I strongly recommend you read it. It is absolutely fantastic. Uh, but Isaac Asimov basically felt rules should replace commandments, and humans buffered by systems, and he basically felt that he thought of things more like an engineer with the system, with the way that the world worked. Um, he laws his laws exposed ethical problems. They didn't eliminate them. Asimov basically didn't trust people, he trusted structure. Um, and he, in the Foundation um, series, the rules fell under pressure, and there's always loopholes. And that's how he had the mule, but the responsibility ultimately returns to the humans, and the system can't replace judgment. And but he still, there was never in all of this, there was never any um, religion or divinity or supernatural power that came into it. Um, so he was an atheist, and he maintained that with all of his stories. Now, this is a Stranger in a Strange Land is uh, probably one of the most significant books, because while it's a humanist, very strong humanist book, it actually caused the creation of many, many um, uh, religious cults, from people who read it and took it as a Bible to how to create a religious cult in the 1960s and 1970s. So it's kind of strange from that point of view. But it is a straight humanistic, atheistic book that Heinlein was saying you don't need humans can construct ethics without God, and it was basically showing how Michael was able to come up with a complete system of ethics and how to live and how to have a society without there being any divinity or God in there. But this is one of the ones that is a cautionary tale that that you have to watch out for. Uh, that you might you might get into trouble with, even though you're trying to be um, where humanism can go wrong. So now the problem is that Michael was very charismatic, and Heinlein used charisma to replace God, certainty to replace humility, and community to becomes dogma. Humanism can reproduce the failures of religion. And that really is what it is. What fails is not humanism itself, but overconfidence, moral absolutism, and personality worship. And Michael becomes a substitute for authority, which can appear to be like a religion. And so that's where this really was where the problem came in with Michael. Removing God does not remove the human desire for certainty, and this is what happened with Stranger in a Strange Land. Um, and this book really uh, was a transition book because it stimulated the new wave. It stimulated a lot of authors to start the new wave and leave the techno John Campbell must have hard science, science fiction, and start the new wave. So the new wave of science fiction reclaims humanism, uh, in your face humanism. This complete distrust for technological optimism, a focus on psychology, culture, and power, ethics without guarantees. Science fiction turns inward. Um, and it reopens the questions of is science fiction about machines or about people? And the writers of the New Age reject the engineering morality and the technology reassurances. It wasn't anti-science. The New Age asks whether humanism survives when systems fail. And one of the authors of the New Waves was Ursula Le Guin, and she basically felt that humanism uh, was relationships, and ethics are cultural, meaning is negotiated, and there was a responsibility to others. And one of her books that is really most poignant about this is The City of Illusions. And this is a very good tie back to not just this, but most of her books are good tie backs to Swift and the way that she uses the uses a lot of the questions about um, morality and behavior over belief to in her works to show the differences between it. Le Guin shows that humanism is relational, not procedural. And Philip K. Dick, um, he really asked the questions of the is how does humanism function if reality is unstable, if authority is unreliable, and if meaning is manufactured? You know, if you take Do Androids Dream of Electronic Sleep or Blade Runner as the movie that was taken from that story was called, it's you know you have to question everything that happens. You have to question. Yeah, but you know, people sometimes have to question: Am I really a human or am I an android? It's it's really it's a you can't trust uh anything that's happening. You can't trust the government. You can't trust your own memories. And Philip K. Dick has all many of his stories are like this. That so what's the meaning of anything if you can't trust this? And it then brings up all kinds of questions about how can you um, how can you set up a ethics system when you can't even trust what's happening to you. Octavia Butler, again, her science fiction again has nothing to do with machines. Whoops, sorry. It's all about human responses. There's technology in it, but it's not core. It goes back to humanistic roots. The Science fiction is what it was originally back to, and again, this is going back to Gulliver's Travel and to Frankenstein and to the early Verne. You just have to, it just is. Um, in in Octavia Butler and Survival, the Parable of the Sower, there's no divine rescue, there's no saviors, cooperation. The whole thing in Parable of the Sower is that the humans have to cooperate in order to survive. And that is the whole point of her book. And you have to take responsibility for what you're doing. Ethics are what makes survival possible. Now, this book is really interesting. Ministry of the Future by Kim Stanley Robinson. It basically says that uh, in order to survive to the future, we have to think about ethics on a different scale. We have to think about ethics not as individuals, but ethics um, of uh, on a scale of organizations. And again, this is on a planetary scale. And so he brings up planetary organizational ethics. And so it's a very corporate power. And it's a, oh, wait, I'm skipping. I'm looking at one slide and talking about it. So, modern science fiction, I apologize. Modern science fiction uh, really brings humanism under pressure. So, we got climate systems that we're all of a sudden artificial intelligence, surveillance, corporate power. These are all new pressures that we have to think about, and they're really driving current science fiction stories. And the last two authors that I'm going to talk about have really written a lot about them. And there are two authors that I really strongly recommend. The first one that I started to talk about too far in advance is Kim Stanley Robinson, The Ministry for the Future. And it's all about the climate crisis. He talks about how the climate catastrophe forces us to rethink uh, new ethics of um, corporate ethics and institutional ethics, and how institutions have to work together. And this is really an interesting issue because um, right now there are a lot of companies and organizations that are working unethically, again, that are basically against everybody. And so this is a very interesting issue. After he wrote this book, he was actually brought on by the UN to start a completely new group to work on trying to put some of the things from this book into action with that. And the last person I'm going to be talking about is Ted Chiang. And if you don't know his work, he is one thing he wrote, Arrival, which the movie was on, but um, he's one of the most dynamic and prolific writers of the last 10 years or so, 10, 15 years. He's run multiple awards of there's four major science fiction awards, and he's won between three and five of each of the four major awards, and I really strongly recommend them. But the question comes in, what happens if science becomes um, so able to predict what is going to happen that human choice disappears? And uh, is there still a humanistic part that you can play? So, so, uh, so an example is that in the story Your Life, a woman knows exactly how her child's life will end, and she chooses to love the child anyway, not because it will change the outcome, but because the love itself has value. Cheng's showing us that morality does not depend on reward, punishment, or control. It depends on commitment. Uh, this is humanism after certainty, ethics that survive even when nothing is watching and nothing is promised in return. So there's no God stepping in, no promise that things will turn out well, something not even real freedom to change outcomes. So this is uh, uh, knowledge does not prevent loss. Meaning comes from commitment. Ethics survives without guarantees. So this is a different type of humanism that he's writing about, but it's still it really is a new type that I think we need to explore. And now my final slide, and humanism and science fiction. Again, throughout the history of science fiction, going back even to that book from 240 of the Common Era, there had amazingly, science fiction does not have any divine authority. But no guaranteed progress, no moral safety net. My core claim is that science fiction explores how humans choose to act when meaning is not given and outcomes are not promised. Um, uh, Gods removed, traditions removed, reassurances removed. What remains is choice, responsibility, and commitment. Science fiction doesn't predict the future, it tests us as humans. So that's it, and I'm going to open it to questions. And did we stop sharing?
Wow. Uh, that was fantastic. Alan, we talked about it on Sunday, and yeah, it's exactly what I expected. Very, uh, it's contentful and very challenging of our thoughts. Before I forget, Alan mentioned a meetup group at the beginning where we met, and I put it on the chat if you guys want to go. As far as I know, there are two groups, Club to Connect. I
It's
think
two
there's one.
different groups. It's
Yeah,
Saturday night is a murder mystery, Monday night is a fantasy group, and Thursday night is a hard science fiction group. So it's
okay,
actually three different groups.
great, great. Uh, well, does someone want to start? Any questions? Okay,
This is
I have.
Eleanor. I have a question.
Okay, who is that? I can see. Why can't I see everybody?
This is Eleanor.
Okay, Eleanor, go ahead. Yeah, I can see your hands up, but go ahead.
Okay. So so Alan, in listening to this, the thought occurred to me that we talk about, for example, the Star Trek universe traditionally being very optimistic vision of the future. Um,
Eleanor, can I interrupt you for 1 second? Let me just say something that in May, I think it's May 20, what's the date, Helio, that I'm
Well,
coming back?
oh, okay. It's in April. Okay, I'll check. Well, answer
Okay,
and I'll check. I
in
need to
the
open my
at the end
spreadsheet.
of May, I'm giving, this is actually a two-part talk, and this was on science fiction literature. In the end of May, I'm giving a talk on science fiction media. So it's humanism and science fiction media. Just so that you know, but go ahead with your question, Eleanor.
yeah, this question's really agnostic to the format, whether it's we're talking, video or book, but at least based on the literature that you've provided an overview of this evening, it's it seems that it's somewhat. Would you characterize the humanistic approach as optimistic or pessimistic? I
Oh,
sort of took away a more pessimistic tone, or one of struggle, of humanity rather than necessarily triumphing in the future. That was just something that struck me in the presentation. And your thoughts on that?
okay. The It's been a kind of almost like a sine wave, that it's been optimistic and pessimistic. Verne was optimistic, H.G. Wells was pessimistic, the Golden Era was optimistic, the New Wave was pessimistic. Um, uh, uh, we're we're probably in a relatively pessimistic era right now.
Okay, so
Oh, so just yeah, it's May 27, Alan.
That's a Wednesday also.
Yeah. So it's Wednesday, same time. Humanism Films I have here.
So that one will be in humanism and science fiction media. So
Mm,
that'll be both film and TV. So I'll be doing Doctor Who and Star Trek will both be included in that.
great, great.
you said something about the meetup groups, and that was somewhere in the chat, but I'm not sure where.
Yeah, I think it was Olga, and ask her to raise the hand. Olga, you can ask. It's just so we can have a pipeline of questions.
Hi,
Sorry for
thank you
that.
for inviting me. Hi, Alan. This has been, can you hear me?
Yes?
Yeah.
Okay. Alan, it's been fascinating. Thank you so much. I hope you give a talk like that to the Albany group too at some point. Since I'm originally from the Soviet Union, very, very, very many years ago, I'm wondering if, so Soviet science fiction is a humongous, humongous area of literature and of film. I was wondering if at some point, I don't know if you're familiar with it, but maybe at some point we could discuss something like that because there are a lot of novels and stories about environment and about power. So very many similarities with motives that you mentioned, and clearly completely atheistic as the whole art form being Soviet. So just mentioning it, and there are very interesting things. Maybe other members might be interested. And there are movies like the Strugatsky brothers, the Hard to Be a God. It's a book and it's a movie. It's about power structure, or Roadside Picnic, which is a lot about environmental crisis. So very similar motives, very similar themes from a very different culture. Just interesting parallels.
I saw the
Thank you.
movie. I haven't read the book. And the Russian science fiction books I have read have also consistently been atheistic. Well, I should say atheistic. There's no mention of God. I think by its nature, science fiction versus as I said, versus fantasy has to have no God in it. there are few that have a God in it, but that was it's in there for a very specific purpose that the author's trying to do, but it tends to be um, to discredit the God. But other than a few, it really is the majority are have no God in them, and it really is amazing how that is, and how little is written about that um, in the academic literature of science fiction.
Jim?
I thought I'd bring up that at least some science fiction writers who come across as being agnostic to atheists themselves will show societies where religion is fairly uh, there are a fair number of people who are religious, and he doesn't portray them as idiots or anything. Uh, like Pal Anderson, uh, he wrote a neat short story called "The Problem of Pain," in which a pretty devout Christian encounters some non-human intelligences who have a have a religion of their own, but their conception of God is very different. And this causes sort of a crisis of faith for him. And anyway,
Yeah,
it's you can I
yeah.
don't know if you've read that story.
There's been several first contact books that talk about that exact same thing, that have religious groups having uh, problem, what happens to their faith when they have first contact.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah. That, yeah, and this was in his Technic Civilization series. So there are he also shows other basically colony planets and such like in
Yeah,
which religion is fairly important to them.
yeah,
Uh,
I'll take a look at that.
well, like the Day of Their Return uh, covers a planet where and then A Night of Ghosts and Shadows so shows a world and yes. Anyway.
So, so I see Corin, you want to ask a question? You raise the hand and
Yeah, so thanks for giving that talk, Alan. I I guess I'm not like that well read in the science fiction genre, but I did read an anthology of Isaac Asimov's when I was a kid, and it was a really great anthology. It was like 100 short fantasy and science fiction stories. And I just remember it was a almost completely, atheistic story, a bunch of stories. A lot of them were fantasy stories that were obviously very, kind of undermining the epistemic worldview of something like Christianity. For instance, there was this story about Santa and how Santa came down through the chimney, and a child saw Santa, and the child was like, "I caught you," and Santa was like, "Okay, yeah, you caught me, kid." Well, it turned out that, you know, now I'm going to tell you who I really am. I'm Satan, and like, and now I'm going to take you as my little little slave, and I'm going to take you around, and we're going to turn the world evil and materialistic because now we're, and it's funny because, I don't think that there's anything inherently um uh theistic or atheistic in science fiction or fantasy, really, because I think it's a cultural thing. Like, maybe people that are into science fiction just tend to be more atheistic and humanistic, and you know who knows, um but because I remember also reading a bunch of Le Guin, how do you say it? Le Guin, Le Guin, or something like that. So um, she has a number of stories that actually are more fantasy like The
Oh
Left
yeah,
Hand of Darkness.
yeah,
The Left Hand of
she,
Darkness is a really kind of like fantasy like world, you know.
yeah, she has
But
both.
but she's really atheistic, of course, and so and I also remember like reading C.S. Lewis, who has some fantasy, I mean, some sci-fi novels,
Well,
so, and I don't,
not all fantasy have supernatural beings. Some of them are just have magic without a supernatural being.
right. Well, I'm just saying um it just seems to me and the other one that comes to mind is Madeline L'Engle, so she is a very, Christian writer who
What was that
also
name? I
writes
didn't catch
science.
it.
Madeline L'Engle. So
I'm not
she wrote
familiar with.
Wrinkle in Time.
Wrinkle in Time, yeah.
Oh, Wrinkle in
Yeah,
Time. Oh,
Wrinkle in
okay,
Time.
okay,
Yeah.
yeah.
Um, so, and she's a great science fiction writer. So, and I also just think that being a Christian or being a theistic person doesn't mean that you can't be a humanist either.
Well,
You can be a human. Yeah. So,
definitely. And I've known there's some great science fiction writers who are devout Christians, and when they write straight science fiction, not fantasy, their books are have no mention of theology or God or anything. It's it seems like it's the nature of writing a science fiction story that that you tend to leave out metaphysics.
yeah,
You know,
maybe so. Anyway, that's all I have to say. Thanks.
yeah, no, Corin, thank you very much for the comment.
Yeah, Corin, sorry, taking the Corin as a segue. Um, there are so many science fiction writers that are openly atheists, like Isaac Asimov or Arthur Clarke and many others. But at least I don't see an attack against science fiction from the religious side, as we see from they attacking fantasy, for example. Harry Potter is evil, is Satan, and many others. We talked briefly about that on Sunday, but why do you think that happens? That science fiction is still kind of isolated from these attacks?
Well, and I was thinking about this when we were talking on Sunday, that it's actually fairly. We were talking about from the other direction that um, science fiction, not fantasy, is so popular in the media. Uh, and it basically is portraying like Star Trek. Star Trek is a humanistic, atheistic world, and it's portraying this to the youth for what's it now, 60 years. And uh, it's and there's so many other science fiction. You have 2001, you have uh, well, Star Wars is not is fantasy really.
Agreed.
But you have Terminator, you have Aliens. These are all they're all which I'll be talking about in 3 months. They're all um uh, atheist, humanistic, no theology in them, and people are, the majority of people devouring these are our youths and teenagers and 20 somethings, and and yeah, you're absolutely right. There's no stink about it from the Christian right. But then fantasy, you have a little bit of woo-woo magic, and they make a big deal about it. And I don't know why they're atheist movies. They in literature they don't mind, and a little bit of magic they blow a gasket.
It's true. Jim?
Yeah. Well, now Asimov did touch on religious question in at least one story, The Last Question. You know that one, right? Is it
Um, I it sounds awfully familiar. I'm trying to think uh what
okay? So starts in not too terribly distant future, and uh, somebody asks the uh,
oh, is that
computer,
where he asked the computer?
yeah, is there any way to reverse entropy, essentially?
Yeah, I vaguely remember it.
Yes. Yes. So, uh, and at the end, the ultimate computer that has absorbed all of humanity decides to uh, uh, figures out how to do it um, and says, "Let there be light." Yes.
Yeah, I know that. Yeah.
Yes.
I'm sorry, I can't help but also think about the films of Tarkovsky who um uh, remade Solaris and
Oh, Solaris.
made the film Stalker, and they're profoundly spiritual and metaphysical. So I'm just curious, like I think that there's some aspects of science fiction that still have a lot of theological aspects to them.
Yes. Well, it looks like Julio has his hand raised, and maybe he should
Yeah.
let him speak.
No, actually, it's just to remind Alan to take a look at the chat because
Oh,
Olga left you a message.
let me see.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Strugatsky brothers were the ones that wrote the Roadside Picnic, which turned into Stalker from Tarkovsky, or Tarkovsky remade as Stalker.
Yeah, Stalker is fantastic.
Okay. Yeah, she left several questions. She left another one later farther down.
Yeah,
Left.
the Olga asked the question about the Soviet science fiction,
Yeah,
but she mentioned here the left hand of darkness, another
that's right.
interesting theme, gender and ethics.
Everybody knows that's by Ursula K. Le Guin, or not.
No,
Okay.
I don't know that. Yeah,
Yeah.
and Dawn is saying goodbye.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is there some way to get a copy of all the chat messages?
Oh yeah, I'll send it to you. No worries.
Okay, great. That way I don't
No
have to
worries. Yeah,
copy and paste each one separately.
just let me write
Thank
here
you.
before I forget.
Okay. Now I clicked on this meetup Club to Connect Calgary. So I see that's a meetup group.
Mhm.
Is that the one you were talking about?
Yep,
Yeah.
this is the one that I'm part of. Yeah,
Oh,
and it has several.
mystery.
Because I'm
Okay.
thinking is Tim still here? I think Tim is the
Was Tim sign
organizer
on?
for
I
the
didn't see him.
yeah, Tim. I think this is
Yeah,
the
Tim's
same
still
Tim.
here. Tim's
Yeah,
still here.
and he has more than one meetup, and one is for a Club to Connect Calgary. I think there's one for Edmonton because he's in Edmonton.
Okay.
That
So
is correct.
That's
There's
correct,
one in
Tim?
Calgary.
Okay.
Yeah,
okay,
one in
so I
Edmonton,
see,
one in Calgary,
yeah.
and then
So
actually four others in Edmonton as well.
okay,
Yeah.
so I see that okay, the ones that I see there are all the mystery detective ones, but you at least implied that there was
There should be
some.
a Monday, Thursday one. Tim, can you repost that, or can you post that for people? The
I'll
Monday,
work on
Thursday one?
definitely posted.
Okay.
Olga's trying to talk.
Yeah,
Oh,
Olga, do you want to ask a question?
No, I just hi. I just wanted to follow up when I mentioned Left Hand of Darkness. This was a comment to somebody else's comment was a while ago.
Oh, okay.
This is an Ursula Le Guin. It's an Ursula Le Guin novel, and I find it just fascinating that most of the authors you're talking about were males, and obviously a lot of science fiction are male. And Ursula Le Guin has this fascinating idea about multiple genders in Left Hand of Darkness, which is just so modern and so contemporary now. She didn't think of non-gendered pronouns. I think this is where we're now.
Yeah.
But I think the idea of gender and fluidity of it is a very humanist issue, and I would love to know what modern science fiction does with that. Just an
uh,
idea. I commented because a different participant tonight mentioned the Left Hand of Darkness. That's all.
Olga, have you
Again,
read?
Alan, thank you very much. And since I happen to be Alan's neighbor for now, for
Oh,
real, in
so
real
it's
life,
late.
Okay.
I hope we'll
It's
get
late.
to
Yeah.
talk in real life too. Thank you all
Olga,
very much. Thanks for having us. Appreciate
just
it.
something to
Good
Olga.
night.
Olga, thank you for coming.
Before you
Good
sign
night.
off,
Thank
Olga,
you.
have you read anything by
Mhm.
Lois McMaster Bujold? Because it's at least some of her stories are relevant to
Oh,
that.
she left. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because they are in the East Coast, so they're 2 hours
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
late
10:30
or
here.
yeah. Okay, while you guys think of other questions, let me just show the last few slides I have to share for you, and then we can continue with the rest of the time. I hope you can all see the screen. You can see at the bottom here, Alan has a website. Of course, you don't have to worry about copying it now because I'll post it on the video's comments, okay, on the video description when I post it to on Facebook. And next month, if PowerPoint helps, okay. So next month we'll have Kenny Beadle back with us talking about the flaws of ghost hunting gadgets, why they don't find ghosts. It's gonna be well, it's Kenny Beetle, so it's gonna be fun. And I hope everybody will join again because this is a great opportunity that he's giving us. Oh, now I'm gonna show you a video from our conference. That's this May.
Okay.
Yeah, we got it. Oh, looks like a good bit of cover.
So could you see the video now?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, this is our yearly conference. We can reason, and wow, this is the fourth year that we are having the conference, and lost my Zoom.
Now, just one
We-
suggestion: if you can modify
Yes.
the video, have the
Mhm.
date, have the date stay on the video for the whole video.
Oh, that's a good idea. Okay. Yeah, well, I have to ask the guy who created. Oh, this one, I think it was Jen Lee. I'll ask her to recreate. Yeah, but it's May 1st to 3rd. So it's a Friday, Saturday, and Sunday.
Yeah.
And it's here downtown Calgary. You can go to our website and you can see everything about it there. And we are already selling tickets, and yeah, it's gonna be great. It's growing every year. It's very exciting. Help us spread the word. We have new people here, but for everybody that's watching, we have two websites, the RockyMountainAtheist.ca and WeCanReason.com. We Can Reason, we use this brand for our webinars and our conference. It's more focused on science and critical thinking. So if by any reason you are worried about not being too much atheistic, We Can Reason is the spot because we don't focus on religion, or there's very little link to Rocky Mountain Atheist on website, so you can share our content more freely, not being worried about connections. We are in all social media, so both websites have our social media. If you want to share us, to follow us on social media, you can find us there. We have a Facebook group, Rocky Mountain Atheist. It's growing very slowly, but it's growing, and it's private group. It's a private group, so people need to join. And if they are nasty, I can ban them. So far, I didn't have to ban anyone, but you can be sure that it's private. So what's posted there stay inside the group. Also, please, in both sides, you find links to donate or to be a member. It's just $20 per year to be a member. So if you can help us to keep our work going. And on both websites also, you find the forms to subscribe to our emails. We don't send that many emails. It's 2 per week, one from Rocky Mountain Atheist, one from We Can Reason, plus our newsletter. And of course, during this period of we are planning for the event and we are preparing for the event, we have a few other emails, but we don't send that many, don't worry. Okay, but if you can help us spread the word, it helps a lot. We have our in-person event monthly, the Skeptics in the Pub. It's every third Friday at 7 p.m. And now we are here at Limerick's traditional public house. Sorry.
I think it was third Friday of the month. It's not third Friday of the month.
It's every third Friday. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Every third Friday at 7 p.m. I hope we won't change this for a while. The location, we've been changing a lot. We keep having issues with the location. And I think last time when we brought 39 people to that place, I think they thought, well, it's too many people for this room. And so now we are at the Limericks. I couldn't go because I had the cold last week, so I don't know exactly how it went. But usually they are being great. We have speakers in all events. We have a lot of people coming, new people. And when I mean new, I mean people that never came to our events, and younger people too. So it's good because we aren't exactly getting younger, right? So it's good having new people coming to the events. And now we're back. So any questions to Alan? Alan, do you want to say something else?
No, I really enjoyed doing this. I hope you guys enjoyed the lecture
Wow, it
and
was
webinar.
fantastic. Yeah, it
And
was
I look
amazing.
forward to giving part 2 in 3 months from tonight.
Yeah, no, this was really about. Oh, Brent wants to say something. Why is not showing up there? Brent, you have raised your hand.
No,
No, I
just
think
I
he's
just
Oh,
a
he's
thumbs
just
up.
saying the sign.
Thumbs
Okay.
up. Yeah.
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 No, it was amazing. This was really serendipity at work because, as Alan mentioned, we met at that meetup and he sent us some PowerPoints, and I was just flabbergasted. The contents were great. And I hope to see you again in May.
Well, just so that you people know, I'm thinking of turning this into a the two of them, this and the media, into a well, it'll end up being a 5 hour course, a 1 week course, an hour a day at Chautauqua Institute on humanism and science fiction.
Great.
So
Institute.
Chautauqua Institute. Just
Oh,
for those of you who don't know, I mentioned it at the beginning. Chautauqua Institute started in 1873, and it's a gated community in Western New York, about 70 miles from Buffalo, with 10,000 people there each week for a 9 week summer session. And if you remember, 3.5 years ago, Salman Rushdie was stabbed and almost killed. Every day they have a speaker of his stature, and they have two other speakers of close to his stature. So they have three nationally or internationally known speakers every single day in an amphitheater that sits 7,500. And they basically have 50 major lectures every week. And besides for that, they have 100 courses each week, and they have about 30 music programs each week, and it's a world-class resort with all the sports things you can do at a world-class resort. And it's absolutely, I tell people it's like Dorothy walking into Oz and the world going from black and white to color when you walk onto the campus, and it's absolutely amazing. And I've been going on and off since 1978, and I've been going every year since 2013, and teaching classes there since 2018. And the past 3 years, I've been teaching classes on the history of science fiction. And last year, I also added a class on Introduction to Magic, and I'm going to be teaching both those classes this coming summer. And so it's just absolutely wonderful. It's can't speak more highly of it. So if you, I like I say, it's summer camp for the intellectually seeking adults, um, and really a tremendous place.
That's great. That's very cool. And for everybody, Alan posted his email on the chat. Okay, so if you want to check his email, it's there. Well, thank you, Alan. This was fantastic. I can't wait to see you in May. Thank you very much. And
Yeah.
I know it's late for you. And have a good night.
Good night,
Thank,
everybody.
thank you
Thank
all.
you.
Now.
And I'll be posting the video tomorrow, so Friday it will be available for you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, a lot of people asked me to send them the
Yeah.
video, so yeah, thank you.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye, guys.
Thank you, Elio, too.
okay.